Welcome to Pro Tip Tuesday. Today's pro tip is how to get to the big show, how to prepare yourself, how to prepare your horse, things to take into consideration. This would also be applicable if this was your first show. So when you're planning on a big show, you will need to plan at least 3 months out. You know, if it's a state champs or a regional champs or a national champs, there's lots of things to think about in the lead up, and I suppose the most important part is getting your entries in and seeing where your horse is at once you've got, you know, at the close of entries. I would expect that you, by the time of entries closed, you need to have your qualifications done. So that might require a bit of prior planning so that you can get to the shows you need, so that you can then get the scores, and then you're all ready to go as far as the federation goes. So have a look ahead at the shows. Of course, you'll need shows that are qualifying shows, and you want to make sure that you can do your best job at those shows. So if there's particular things that get in the way, if you know, like lifestyle or weather or you know, is your coach in town, that kind of thing, plan those shows accordingly, and that might even need to be 2 months before the close of entries. And definitely for the big shows, entries do tend to close, you know, 6 weeks before, maybe longer. So there's 6 weeks for the entries, and then there's another 2 months before that for you know, for qualification periods. So you know, that's what, 14 weeks. So that's 14 weeks prior to the big show that you need to be thinking about your progress and your path to get there. And that's at a minimum. You want to be able to go to your qualifying shows and get those qualies. Most of the shows in Australia, it's better to have 3, but you can get in with only 1. So set yourself up so that you can get those 3 qualies, and that way, if you've aimed to get 3 and you don't actually get 3, you only get 2, you're still able to be, you know, there's still a chance that you can get in. If you only get 1 of the qualies when you've planned for 3, then you've still got a chance. But have a look at some of the reasons behind not getting those qualifications. You know, you might not quite be ready for that big show. Lots of different things can have an effect on whether you get a qualification, so take each one on a case-by-case basis. All right, and so your training will need to be on track to be able to get your qualifications. So your training needs to be ready so that you can get your qualies, so that you can get your entries in, so that you can get to the big show. And so you might need to be, if you've got your eye on a championship and you're at 14 weeks out and you're looking at your qualifying shows, you know, check what your training's doing. Are you ready? You know, if you want to enter novice and elementary, if you're not doing all the elementary movements, then there's a good chance you're not going to make it. So be realistic, and you know, it might be better for you to compete at prelim or novice. On the other hand, if you've been competing prelim novice for a while, maybe this is your chance to test the waters and see if you're ready to go elementary, or you know, ready to go up to the next level. So have your training sorted out. If you need to see your coach, and of course you should be seeing your coach regularly, then make sure that fits in with your schedule as well. Where does your coaching sit in the lead up to your big show? And of course, with everything, you want to make sure that you are in a good frame of mind. Be mindful of where your brain is at. Be mindful of yourself, be mindful of the way you're thinking. If you're feeling pressure and it's not a good thing, then perhaps think about what you're going to enter. Perhaps you need to back off and enter the lower levels, or perhaps you only need to enter 1 level. The other thing to think about is sometimes pressure is a good thing. And if the pressure of entry, you know, if you can see the entry date looming, and that's making, you know, that's putting pressure on you, and it's good pressure, then by all means, you know, enjoy it. Use that pressure to push you forward and propel you into, you know, that next phase, and use it to challenge yourself. That's perfectly fine. And different people will handle pressure differently. So there's no right and wrong way of handling it. You just find what works for you. And then of course there are the setbacks. You can do the best planning ever and you know, you will hurt yourself, or your horse might hurt yourself, or something might go wrong that is completely out of your control. And that's, you know, that's just the way life is. So the beauty about planning so far ahead is that if you have a setback along the way, there was bound to be something coming up after your big show. There is bound to be something that you can aim for after that. And the best way to handle a setback is to immediately reassess and say, all right, where are we? What have we got? What can we work with, and where to from here? If one of you has an injury, then of course you'll need that injury time. So you just factor that in. Setbacks are just a part of being a competitor and being a rider, and they happen all the time, and they happen to the best of the best. So don't think that you're the only one who's had a setback. They happen all the time. Be careful not to dwell too much, and it can be really easy to get really upset and you know, be upset about it for a long time. But don't forget, the longer you're upset about something that's gone wrong, the less time you've got to get to the next thing after that. So, you know, by all means get upset, have a bad day, you know, console yourself with chocolate and wine at the end of the day, but the next day wake up ready to make a new plan, make a new goal, and tackle that. For me, I like to have a big calendar, and all of my shows will be on that calendar. And then for the really big shows, I will have the closing dates on there as well. So in that way, I'm not going to miss any of the closing dates. I'm not going to, you know, ill prepare. I'm completely ready, and you know, I know what's coming up. And if you've got all your show dates on a calendar, if you have a setback, you can go to that one and say, all right, I'm not going to make that one, and then you just, you know, look down the rest of them and you'll find the next one straight away. Well, often for me, if I had a setback, I would look for the next one, and then I would do the calculation, and I would say, actually, it's going to be tight, or, you know, like it's not a leisurely amount of time before the next show. And so that's what would then get me excited again. All right, back to preparation and, you know, getting everything organized. There's some tips on how to get ready for your big show. And of course, you know, it's also relevant for getting to your first show. But instead of qualification shows, perhaps you might test yourself at home, and then you might go to a friend's arena or another arena and test yourself there. And then once you've done that, you might say, okay, I feel I'm ready to go, put my entries in, and you're away. I hope you've enjoyed this Pro Tip Tuesday. I will talk to you soon.